Good morning. Welcome back to Lovebabz, Lovetalk. I'm Babz Rawls Ivy. It is the talking part of the 10 o'clock show, but all week I've been talking. I've had guests in and out of the studio every single day this week. I loved it. I didn't play much music, but since we didn't do Criminal Justice Insider the last hour at 9 o'clock, I spin some music. But now I'm back to talking. And in studio today is Brian Kelahan from Common Ground, my favorite school.
Mine too.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having us.
So let me tell you a little bit about Brian, then I'm going to introduce the young man who's with us. So Brian is the college and career teacher over at Common Ground. I'm on the board of Common Ground. So this is a shameless plug for the school that I love. And so he gets these kids ready through job shadows, SAT support, college application guidance. He's just an all-around straight-up guy. And let me tell you, he helped guide my son to graduation, and I will be eternally grateful. How are you?
I'm good.
And then we have a Common Ground alum. What's your name, baby?
My name is Lovebabz.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
When did you graduate?
This year, 2018.
Oh, I saw you! I was so glad when Greg graduated. I was only focused on him, but I saw you. How are you all?
Great.
Welcome. All right, so tell us, Brian, tell us what Common Ground is, because people know, but tell us.
Okay, so when I talk about Common Ground High School, I talk about the fact there's a number of different ways we present it. The simple way is to say it's a public interdistrict charter magnet school. And all of those things mean something. And I can talk about each one of those. But another way to talk about Common Ground is it's a school with a farm in a park in a city.
That's my favorite thing to say.
Yeah. And then the last thing is, we're a small school with deep roots that makes big changes in kids' lives.
Yes, and I can attest to that too.
As a school, public school, we have to follow all the rules that public schools have to follow, all the state statutes. Some students and some families think that because we're a charter school, we get to pick and choose what we do.
Mm-hmm.
In some states, not like Connecticut, but in some states, charter schools are in this kind of quasi-public-private space.
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut statute says the Common Ground as a charter school has to follow all the laws regarding discipline, regarding graduation requirements, regarding IEPs and special ed. We have to do everything that every other public school does.
Yes.
As an interdistrict magnet school, we accept students from anywhere in Connecticut. We have a commitment that 2/3 to 70% of our students come from the city of New Haven. The other students come from outside New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
So we have kids coming from as many as 25 different towns and cities, as far east as Bridgeport, as far north as Waterbury, Hartford, as far west as Bridgeport, as far east as Madison, Guilford, Clinton. So we get kids from all over. We are a magnet school, and our magnet theme is environmental sustainability and social justice.
Mm-hmm.
And we link those two things very closely.
Mm-hmm.
And I can talk your ear off about that.
Wait, that's what it's radio. You gotta be talking.
Okay, so as an environmental sustainability school, we're looking to connect kids to the natural world. So the reason that we have a farm on our campus is not because some people think we're a farm school. We're teaching kids how to be farmers. We are not teaching students how to be farmers. We're teaching them to have a better relationship with the natural world. We want them to understand, where does their food come from?
Yes.
We want them to understand, as part of that connection between environmental sustainability and social justice, why do some people have better access to food than other people? So in our 9th grade core curriculum, when we do a unit on food, we start by thinking about at one time humans got their food through hunting and gathering.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go through that history of becoming agriculturalists right up to the modern day where we talk about food systems, agricultural systems that are industrial, food deserts here in New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Our students have done analyses of different communities in New Haven and talked about those food deserts and talked about what can be done about that. And that's where we link to social justice. And so our school is also interested in social justice.
Yep.
We do a lot of work on anti-racism, anti-oppression work. We can do a lot better at that. I'm not going to say we're doing it perfectly yet, but we want to be doing it better.
Okay.
And I think we're a school that's committed to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like it too.
All right, so young man, tell me about your experience.
Well, one thing.
Why'd you pick it?
Well, Common Ground wasn't my first choice, but I kind of fell in love with Common Ground as an 8th grader because first thing I was thinking about is different. I like being different. As an 8th grader, I didn't want to go to a Wilbercross or a Hill House because I wanted to be different than other New Haven kids. Because growing up in New Haven, the go-to places are Hill House and Cross. So I kind of wanted to be different. I heard about Common Ground. I didn't even know where Common Ground was as an 8th grader. But I still went through with it, with the Common Ground. And then, it wasn't always like as a freshman, I was kind of nervous, being around this type of environment.
Why?
Well, because it wasn't because I came from L.W. Beecher. It's real similar to like any other New Haven public school in New Haven. So going from that to Common Ground, where it's like a very diverse community, it's a real different experience. So it kind of hit me. But then as I kept attending Common Ground, I started to fall in love with the environmental theme of it, going outside, being hands-on. But that's not what Common Ground is all about as far as what we do. Because a lot of people think we're a farm school. We just stay outside and pick crops the whole time. But that's not the case. The case is we learn around it. We use that as kind of an advantage to us, being able to have things that we could put our hands on. We have the resources for that. As far as the farm, agriculture, we could learn those type of things. But agriculture is not something that we force upon kids. It's something that's just a resource for you to learn. And it's very advantageous to me because I'm more of a hands-on person. I'm not always a classroom person.
Did you know anything about farms before you got there? And crops and food and.
Well, one of the teachers at Beecher was into the farming and agriculture. I kind of picked his brains, but I wasn't too deep.
You wasn't in the backyard creating a.
No, I wasn't doing it myself. Nah. But then I learned about the raised beds. I learned about a lot of stuff at Common Ground. I got jobs through Common Ground through Green Jobs Corps program they have there. It's a wonderful program. It's a chance for kids to make a good amount of money or volunteer at that. And I think it's a lot of opportunities at Common Ground that I didn't even see as a freshman, and I began to explore going into my senior year. So it's definitely a great experience.
So Brian, how many kids go to Common Ground?
So we have had, last year we started the year off with 200 students. This year we want to start the year off with 215 because the state of Connecticut just recently increased our allotment by 15 seats.
So if people are interested in this school, what do they have to do?
They have to call me at Common Ground at 203-389-0823, extension 1281, or they can go to commongroundct.org, and there is an application page that will send an email directly to me, and I will be in touch with them. And then we have a conversation. If they were doing this during the regular school year, if they were an 8th grader, we would want them to come and spend the day shadowing another student, following around, making sure they understand what Common Ground is about. We really don't want students picking us without really knowing us. Some students that do that, we've had some bad luck with those families in the past. And the worst thing I think that can happen for a high school student is to start at one high school and then have to transfer out.
I mean, I had a kid, Margot, my youngest daughter, started at Common Ground, and she transferred to Hampton High. And, it was not a bad transitioning from Common Ground to Hampton High. It wasn't a horror story.
Right.
So, it just worked. She just needed a bigger environment. But I think she was very in tune to the Common Ground experience. I think she got a lot out of it, and I was happy to have her there. So So yeah, so it's not for everybody.
Right. It's not for everybody. Although I loved having Margot in my world history class, I have to tell you.
Oh, good.
I really did. She was a sharp individual.
Oh, thank you.
Really sharp.
We all want to hear our kids are something. So, all right. So they got to contact you.
They got to contact me. And if we were talking about this during the regular school year, if they were a student coming from outside New Haven, they'd go into a lottery that we hold at our school for students who are coming from outside New Haven. And to get into that lottery, they need to come and spend a day, have a conversation with me, with their family. If they're coming from the New Haven public schools, or if they're a New Haven resident, then they have to go through the New Haven public schools school choice lottery system. That lottery has already happened. We now have seats for the summer where we're going out. We're trying to find additional students.
Okay.
So at this point, they're just going to call me, and we're going to try and take kids in as they come in.
Okay.
But that's just a unique situation. Usually it's going to be through a lottery system, and that's part of what the state requires, so that we can't, there's an A school system in Connecticut other than a private school that's kind of be picking and choosing who comes to their school.
Yes.
That's not what public school should be about. Public school should be about the students are coming and you educate them based on whoever they are when they come through the door.
So no cherry picking.
No cherry picking.
We don't want the cream of the crop. So there's these myths out there about Common Ground, that it is a lily white school masquerading as a private school, and that the only kids that go there are white kids from affluent people who drink coffee. I get this all the time because I tell people I'm on the board, and they're like, "Oh, there aren't any black kids out there. There are no Latino kids." And I was like, "Have y'all been out there? It can't get any blacker." And they got black people on staff, like there's black and Latino people who work there.
Absolutely. Our student population is much more diverse than our staff population, and we're working on that. But our student population is, and I don't know the exact statistics, but we're about a third African American, we're about a third Hispanic, we're about a third white. But those statistics, as you know, are difficult because you have students who are mixed race, you have students who don't want to say I'm this or I'm that.
Yes.
Particularly young people today.
Yes.
They don't want some government form forcing them to identify one way or the other. They're speaking up very much and saying, I don't want to have to fill that out and say that I'm this or that. I'm just who I am. But we are a very diverse student body. We take in students who are immigrants. One of our graduates this year, he and another student formed a student organization at our campus specifically for students who were coming from outside the U.S. and are English language learners. And we have a group of about 10 or 12 students that fall in that category, who come from Latino nations, who come from Middle Eastern Arab-speaking nations. So we have a very diverse student population. In a population of what'll be 215 to 220 to start the year, we're going to be about a third.
Okay.
I think.
And what I find fascinating and interesting is what people don't know is that there are a lot of after-school clubs, activities, the kids. It's not just agricultural things. I mean, you've got all kinds of activities that are well attended by these kids. Talk a little bit about some of those.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let Eli talk a little bit about some of the after-school programs, and then I'll fill in a little bit as well.
Yeah, there's a very numerous list. There's a numerous things you can do at Common Ground. It's like I was a part of strategy games for 4 years. I like board games. I like video games, and it was also a gameplay program.
You have a sharp mind.
Yeah. So I like keeping my mind active with like something that's a little more like hands-on or fun. As far as like, like playing Monopoly and stuff like that. Like that is fun to me because, it gives me, I could think about it, but like it doesn't feel like I'm really thinking about it. It feels like it's like kind of like secondhand nature because you like your brain is active, but you don't like you just being yourself and like having fun with your friends. So that's how I met most of my friends is through like strategy games after school programs. That's a good way to get social with other kids if you're not necessarily used to the environment. And then I also was a part of being a student ambassador, being able to recruit students like how I'm doing now, kind of like telling kids about Common Ground, telling people about Common Ground, parents, and also,
because when they see you, they feel a little better.
yeah,
Because you are squarely young African American male, and that carries a little weight when you go into these places.
Yeah, because any adult can say what they have to say about Common Ground, but I feel like it can be better coming from someone their age, someone that they can relate to. Because in this generation, it's different from other generations. Like as far as like being able to relate to a kid, being able to like talk to a kid. So I feel like me relaying the message that Mr. K says all the time, as far as like what Common Ground is all about, is real helpful to a lot of youth as far as like wanting to know about Common Ground. And not only I'm a student ambassador, I'm also a peer mediator. It's not necessarily after school program. It's kind of an end school program.
So talk about the peer mediation. What does that do?
Well, peer mediation is kind of like being like the middle person in a conflict, being able to solve conflicts. I think it's a very helpful skill as far as like for like future jobs.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you're being able to you're working on problem solving skills, and you're also working on being able to like relate, like talk to other people without like taking them off, because they're not always in the most stable condition as far as like being able to handle somebody talking to them in a way. And like I said, like as a young teenager, I can relate to them as far as like any disciplinary teacher could talk to them and say whatever, but as far as me, I could kind of relate to them. They probably feel better when I'm saying it. And like, and I'm not saying that like disciplinary teachers, like teachers that talk to them, aren't doing a good job. I'm just saying that me saying it probably sound a little better because I could relate to them. Like I said, in this generation, it's probably better coming from me. And it was a very helpful experience, because I was able to problem solve like my own conflicts myself, and also the conflicts of people around me, being able to be a helpful person, and kind of form into that role model that I was kind of destined to be.
I like that.
Yeah, and he was great at it, and we're gonna miss him very much this year since he's graduated.
And so where are you going?
I plan on moving from Connecticut.
Where you going?
It was either Arizona, Colorado.
Arizona.
Yeah, I like Arizona. I have family in Arizona.
Oh, all right.
Very good people in Arizona.
I was like, maybe it's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I like Arizona too. There's no greenery out there, but the air is dry and
it's real nice.
And there's
there.
no water.
No water.
Yeah. So are you going off to college?
Yeah, wherever I go, I'm definitely gonna find a community college to start off at, and then hopefully like go to maybe a bigger college.
That's very smart.
Depending on the situation.
It's smart on your wallet, and it's smart in easing you into that collegiate life.
Yeah, because I feel like you got to make the best decision financially sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Well, all the time.
Welcome to adulting. All the time.
All the time. All the time. Yeah. So I definitely got to I don't want to graduate in like major debt as far as that. So that's why I feel like it's the best decision financially.
Okay.
So after school programs, in addition to what Eli was just talking about, so we have robotics, we have a medical arts program,
Geek Squad.
We've got a Geek Squad. The Geek Squad takes care of all of the technological equipment in the building.
Really?
Yeah. So the
and y'all turn that over to kids.
With some
supervision.
Yes. Although I am,
because that could go all kinds of wacky.
It could, but like if I'm having a problem in the classroom with a computer, I look at the kids. All right, who's going to fix this?
Yes.
Because I've got nothing when it comes to that. I don't know.
That's a good use of young brains, right? Because they are all in tune to
they
tech.
Understand it.
Yes,
they understand it. They kind of laugh at me about my phone sometimes.
Why? Don't please tell me you don't have a flip phone.
No, not anymore.
Okay.
No, but
not anymore.
Okay,
I'm gonna make fun of you too.
My oldest son and my wife decided this past Christmas I needed a new phone.
What? This past Christmas?
This past.
Oh, y'all
Christmas.
must have screamed on him from day one. Like, what kind of phone is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got some technology programs in the afternoon.
Okay.
The robotics, the medical art that's run by a STEM programmer, the Geek Squad, but we also have a rap and poetry program.
Yes.
We have a podcast program that's done some really interesting podcasts that are up on SoundCloud. We have a newspaper program, a yearbook program. Those are more traditional public high school kind of program. but we have our Animal Ventures program. So you have, for those students, and you always get a cohort of students coming to Common Ground who are coming there because they really want to work with the animals. They're the pre-vet kind of student. So they want to be with the chickens, the ducks, the turkeys.
And sometimes you have hogs, right? Or pigs or...
We did in the past. I don't know if we're going to continue doing that.
Yeah, not recently.
There were some issues concerning erosion of the grounds.
Yeah.
And so we're not sure whether we're going to be bringing those back. They're trying to figure out how they can bring them back and do it in a way that's sustainable with the environment.
Yeah.
Because we can't just teach about sustainability. We have to
be
have
about
a program that's about sustainability.
Yes.
We have the 2 sheep and the goat. Stuart the goat is a beloved creature amongst the students. And so you've got a team of students who are part of the Animal Ventures. We've got a Bee Ventures. We have a number of hives, and we have a...
Do we have honey? Have we made honey yet?
I can't believe you're looking at me and say, do we have honey?
I have not... Listen.
Yes,
I
we
had no
have honey.
idea.
In fact...
Are you selling it? Because I'd buy it.
I don't know if we sell it, or I think it's possible that we do. Tim was actually, who's the beekeeper, he was talking about a couple buckets full the other day.
Now, that I did not know we had bees.
We do. And we have students who take care of them.
Really?
With
Bee
our
Ventures.
beekeeper. Bee Ventures. Yep.
I like that.
Yeah. And then we have...
I'm on the board. I had no idea there were bees.
There's always things as a board member you start to find out.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm excited to know that.
We have a number of different art programs. So we have people who produce art. We have an after-school program that's called the Business of Art, where they're actually producing artwork that they're selling at craft shows. And then we have an anime club.
Yes, Margot was in the anime club for a minute.
I don't get that. But,
I don't either.
Yep, but there's
but it's a thing.
There's a thing that when I go out and I talk, Eli's been out with me at these middle schools. When you say anime, there's
like,
always a group that lights right up.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something, Brian. This is why I ask these questions because I think people don't know that they have all these things at the school that people can jump into a club and progress into these things. Like it's not just the farm,
right?
And the environment. There's I remember there's a singing group, right? There's a band or people that play instruments. So so you're not missing out if you go to Common Ground.
Absolutely not. So one of the things that we're moving toward in terms of our recruiting material is to really start to focus on the fact that Common Ground students are athletes. Eli, who's sitting across the desk from me here, was part of our championship basketball team.
Yes, high five.
Yeah.
And we have students who come to Common Ground and they play on the athletic teams at Wilbercross and at Hill House and in their home district. We have a student hopefully coming this year who's going to be going to Common Ground but playing soccer at Amity High School. We have a student who plays in the women's soccer team over at Wilbercross. We have students who play in the lacrosse team at Wilbercross. We have one student who's a senior who is actually going to be setting some state records on the Wilbercross track team. And he's talking now about some track scholarships. So we have students who come to Common Ground and are actually being recruited by Division I athletic programs. We have students who are artists at Common Ground. We have a student that was in my guidance group, graduated 3 years ago, who received a full ride scholarship at a college down in Maryland for art. We have another student this year who's gone off to an art program. She was accepted to about 12 different fine arts programs in college, and she's chosen to go to Alfred for their fine arts program. We have a partnership now with the Pear College of Art, where our students who really are passionate about art can go and take college-level courses at the Pear College of Art. We have partnerships where our students are doing internships with Creative Arts Workshop. They're doing a program with an incredible sculptor named Roberto Lugo, and they're going to do a mural.
Yes, I know about this.
Very excited about it. You have students who are doing internships with New Haven Arts and Ideas. So the students who have a real passion for art and being in that art world can come to Common Ground and still meet that need while they're at Common Ground. That's one of the reasons why we say we're a small school with deep roots that provides big changes for students.
So, Brian, talk to me about the academic component, because I know it is college preparatory.
Absolutely.
Which gets lost in the farm, in the
Right.
environmental stuff.
So all of our students, when they come in, our expectation is that we need to be preparing them for college. Not all of our students are going to choose that route, but we make sure that all of them, if they want to take that route, are prepared to do so. So we have like I said earlier, we have all of the graduation requirements for the state of Connecticut. What we're doing, because we're a magnet school, is we're giving them those math and English and science and social studies courses, but we're doing it through our magnet lens. So as a history teacher, when I was teaching world history, I was giving the students a world history curriculum, but it was through the lens of the history of food. And so when you're talking about food that we grow in our garden at Common Ground, and I had each one of those students had to pick one food item to research. When they pick collard greens and they have to find the history of collards, where were they first domesticated? And then once they were domesticated by humans, how did they then migrate from wherever they were first domesticated and then eventually end up on the farm in New Haven? And that's a story that involves the history of slavery. It involves the history of the Great Migration here in the U.S. So although you're looking at collard greens, you're getting this very big story about human history.
I love this.
And we do things like food and the environment. So that's where we talk about the linkage between industrial production. We talk about the linkage between food and an increase in population. We're going toward 8 billion people in the world. How are we going to feed all those people? So we have to figure out what's the technology that gets us there to be able to feed that many people, and what are the ethical choices that we're making about technology. So the food and the environment teacher is taking those students and meeting with the scientists at Monsanto, and then they're having some conversations, and some difficult conversations with that scientist about the choices that they're making with genetically modified organisms, and really getting into that. My wife is an environmental health and safety manager for GE Power. And so she comes in, she talks with an environmental science class, and they're talking about sustainable environmental practices with a company that's producing coal-powered equipment. What are the choices that are being made there? So we're giving them the science, right? But we're also exploring some of those social justice issues. In the biology class, our biology teacher, Mr. Sanusis, does a whole unit on the HeLa cells, the Henrietta Lacks cells. And so he's doing microbiology. Every high school in Connecticut has to do microbiology. Not every high school in Connecticut's talking about Henrietta Lacks and telling her story.
Yes.
That's part of our social justice
I love this school. This is why.
In a math class, one of our math teachers, I love this particular project, will take the students out and they will look at the chicken pen, and they'll do measurements on the chicken pen, and they're going to talk about how much should we be selling eggs for in order to make a profit, given what all of the different costs are with the chicken pen. We have another math teacher, when he wants to talk, and I got to be careful about this because I mentioned I'm a history teacher. So when I start to talk about math and science terms, I get out on a limb and I might screw it up. But the pH scale, remember pH scale, right? The pH scale is an algorithmic scale. And to help students understand that algorithmic scale, the math teacher takes them out into the garden and they measure the pH of the soil in the garden, and then they start to understand the math that underlies that pH scale when they're doing those kind of measurements. So there's that linkage between our place and whatever they're learning in their classroom. So yes, we are doing a traditional college preparatory curriculum, right? But we're doing it through that lens of working with the environment and talking about social justice in all of our classes.
And you've got a couple of literary teachers who are committed to, which I was fascinated by this because the other schools are not doing this. They mix in writers and literary people of color.
Yeah.
Like this, we're not going to just focus on Tennyson and Edith Wharton and Norman Mailer, and we're gonna look at Langston Hughes, and we're gonna look at Zora Neale Hurston, and we're gonna look at all those kinds of. Do you feel that's accurate, Eli?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So when you were there, Eli, when you were learning there and you were studying and taking these classes, what was it like? How was the curriculum for you? Did you find the work challenging and engaging, or
Well, certain classes was very challenging. And, yeah,
like
very
what? Like what was challenging?
Like I took an AP class for the first time, and I see a class full of kids that's already taking AP classes, and it was kind of like a shock to me. It was kind of intimidating to be around AP students. I was kind of scared of AP students because I was like, do I belong here? Do I belong in this class? But then, like, after talking to Mr. K, I meant, it kind of like made me realize maybe I do belong here.
You do?
Yeah, definitely. And and then also like being in a school of 200 kids, the teachers really find the time to get to know you.
Yes, they know you. They know your
and
name. They know your family. They know where you come from.
They know that, and they also know how I learn, so that can help me. Because when you in a school of like 1,000 kids, like teachers can only know you so much because they're teaching like another 100 kids a day, and being able to have a decent sized classroom, about 15 to 20 students, but like not teaching that many kids a day, I think that's very helpful because you're able to know the kid, learn with the kid,
and they can figure out where your strengths are and your
weaknesses,
and have you play to those, right?
Yeah. So that's definitely helpful. That helped me throughout the way because I was able to work with the teachers as far as like getting my grades up, keeping them up. Because I also had to maintain my grades for basketball. I had to have at least a C average. So that was definitely a motivator too, as far as like academics.
Because you like playing basketball.
Yeah, like one thing my coach always push, Coach Aaron, no books, no balls. That's always a message for me. And I'll take that very seriously because basketball will take you a long way, but education can also take you just as far.
Yes.
So like that's what always been my mindset. And academically, I think that the teachers are there to help you. They invest their time in you as far as like they want you to graduate. They want you to succeed. There's not like a lot of kids, they think, oh, teachers, they don't want me to win. But really, they do want you to win. They have that mentality that like, we're going to get you through this. And I think that's kind of what got me through it.
Did you have a favorite book in literature?
Favorite book? I like Lord of the Flies. I think that was a pretty good
Really?
book. Yeah. And Fast Talk on a Slow Track. I thought that was a very good book too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You were taught well.
Yeah, that was definitely a good book. But I like to read like newspaper. Like I like to read like sports articles because I like sports journalism. That's something I wanted to get into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Feel free to write for me if you want. I run the inner city newspaper too.
Yeah.
So you can get your feet wet writing, covering stuff for me if you want before you go to Arizona. All right. So Brian, so it's a college prep.
College prep.
Rigorous.
Let me talk a little bit more about. Because academically we're preparing them, but we also have an entire curriculum in terms of college exposure. About 50% of our students are first-generation college students. So they don't have a family background that's giving them access. And so we have to work very hard to make sure that our students are getting all of those opportunities. So we're taking students out to visit colleges. We're talking about a college-going curriculum. That's part of my job. In addition to getting students in, doing the recruiting for students, part of my job is to get them set up to go to colleges. And I'm very proud of the fact that for 2 years running, we've had 100% of our students accepted into colleges. I mentioned before that they're not all going to go because financially they might not be able to afford it. Some of them decide it's not the right path for them, but it's important to me that they understand how to do the college application process because if they're 22 or they're 25, there are adults out there that have figured out that they need college in order to move forward with their family's needs, right? But there's a hurdle for them because that process is challenging. It's particularly challenging today.
Yes.
And so I want my students, by the time they leave Common Ground, to have experienced going through applying to college, whatever that process is, so that if they don't go now, when they're 21 or 22, they know how to fill out a college application. That hurdle won't be in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have students who are going to four-year colleges in state. We have many students who are going to UConn, Western, Southern, Central, Eastern. But we have a lot of students who are going to four-year colleges out of state as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're applying. I have students who are out on the West Coast, Washington State. We have students who go down south. We have students who are applying to all the New England states, New York, New Jersey. And we do our best to support them. We have a Common Ground bus that seats about 15 students, and I have the endorsement on my driver's license that allows me to drive that bus.
Oh, okay.
And I
get on the bus.
Yeah, my siblings really enjoy that picture of me being there in that front driver's seat of the bus. I grew up in a family of 11 children, so sometimes
my Lord,
it was like driving a bus when we were driving the family car, right? So now I'm driving the bus, and we go out of state. I've taken kids on college trips up to New York, New Jersey, trying to figure out how I can do a college trip to do some HBCUs, going down south.
Well, let me know, because I know a lot of people who run those trips, who do that, who are connected with the HBCU, because I'm a graduate of HBCU. So
which one?
I went to Barber, Scotia, which is just outside of Concord, between Charlotte and Livingston.
Yeah.
So.
And are you a supportive alum?
Yes.
Because that's a challenge with the HBCUs. I'd love to get our students to the HBCUs, but a lot of them don't have the financial resources.
They don't. My daughter is at Bennett right now.
Great school.
In Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yep.
And my sister went to Spelman and FAMU. So, so we've got, in my family, we've got a lot of HBCU grads.
That's great.
Well, quite a few.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that would be a lovely connection if you could make it.
And I'm working on that. Last summer, I spent the summer trying to encourage some of those colleges to come to Common Ground. Didn't have any luck with that, and I understand. I mean, it would be hard for them to devote their limited resources to coming up to a school in New Haven where they're, at best, they're going to get one or two applications.
Yeah.
But they do a recruiting fair in New York City.
They do, and it's a very popular one.
And, we're going to put the kids on the bus and drive them down to Brooklyn for that recruiting fair that they do.
Oh, good.
And now there are schools that are specifically starting to focus on the Hispanic population. So Montclair State in New Jersey, for instance, has a summer program specifically for Hispanic students to try and build their college-going interests. And we had some of our students apply to that program this summer. Unfortunately, they didn't get in, but we're going to keep pushing at that and then take some students down to see Montclair State. And again, this is about encouraging them to see their future that way, to be able to imagine themselves there in that space, so that they'll feel comfortable doing the applications. They'll feel comfortable believing that they can get there. This guy across the table from me here, I've done some work with him. I'm believing that he can get there.
Yes.
And talking about, and Eli's familiar with this, talking with him about imposter syndrome and being in a place where he thinks he doesn't really belong.
Listen, you are the ancestors' wildest dreams. You good. Wherever you go, you good. So I understand. I've been the first. I've been the only in a lot of spaces all over the place. And, you grow into that. And you're just like, you know what? You represent yourself. You represent your people. You represent your family. Where and when you enter, so goes everything that you believe. So, yeah. Get over that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You belong anywhere you put your feet. That's what I say. And thank you for doing that work.
Yeah.
So, Brian, how long have you been with Common Ground?
I'm going to be starting my 6th or 7th year.
And
I've been in New Haven for almost 2 decades. I taught at Hyde Leadership before Hyde became Creed, and course, we now know what happened to Creed.
Yeah.
Um,
So
those-
you have a love for a smaller footprint of a school.
I do.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. So why Common Ground? Because you could have gone anywhere. There's a plethora of interdistrict magnet charter schools that could woo you. Why Common Ground? Okay, this is radio.
What? Yeah. I won't start singing.
Oh, now you got to sing.
Yeah.
Now you got to have a song.
You know what? I do like the small environment. When I was at Hyde, I came out of the classroom in an administrative role where I was working with adults primarily. I like being with students. I like that energy. And I like the commitment that Common Ground has made to really connecting with students and trying to meet them where they are. As a small school, every school in our country has to deal with kids who are coming into the classroom. Some of them are reading at a second grade level in ninth grade, and some of them are reading at a post high school level, and you have to deal with all of those students wherever they are. Common Ground, despite the fact that we're very small, we put a lot of energy into doing that, and I really appreciate the fact that we are trying to meet our students where they are. I also appreciate the fact that we're trying in this state of Connecticut, which is, I read a statistic somewhere, depending on the way you measure this, the second most segregated country or state in the country. That's all part of the Chef versus O'Neill court cases and doing that analysis. I like the fact that Common Ground is trying to break down those barriers, trying to bring students together. And I think we do that fairly well at Common Ground. I think we can do it better. I tell students all the time that we're going to talk about anti-racism work. I say to them, and Eli's heard me say this, you might notice I'm a not young white guy. And when I get up in front of a class of students where at least a third of them are African American, there's a thing that's going on between us that's unstated. And that's happening in every classroom in the United States because of a history of racism. At Common Ground, we name it. And we say we want to do something about this.
And in doing something about it, it has enlisted bringing in the folks that do this work around race communications and race kinds of things.
Absolutely.
I'm on the board of Planned Parenthood, Southern New England, and they are the other half, the other part of the CEIO folks. And so it's Common Ground in Planned Parenthood of Southern New England. So I love that sort of how I'm on these two boards in these two different places doing this work around bias and race and that kind of work. So
it's more than important work. If we're going to go somewhere, and I really believe this, if our country is going to be able to progress to meet whatever its ideals were when it was founded, and when I taught U.S. history, I talked about this constant balance in our country's history between opportunity and oppression, that opportunity that was given on the one hand was based on oppression on the other. We got to keep talking about this. We got to keep working on it. And I'm a person in that family of 11 children. I was in the middle between the big kids and the little kids. And that's you asked, why am I here? It speaks to who I am. I'm a person who's lived in the middle most of my life. So I like being at Common Ground because we're trying to be in the middle. We're trying to mix it up. We're trying to understand how to do it better. And so when I talk to students, when I go out to recruit at middle schools, I say to them, look, if you're comfortable, if you're good, getting your C's, getting your B's, and you're not looking to be challenged, Common Ground's not going to be the right place for you. But if you want to make a move, right? If you want to make a move academically, if you want to make a move socially, if you want to make a move in terms of thinking about justice, if you want to make a move just in terms of who you are, we're a great place for you because we're going to support whatever that move is. We've got a great curriculum, 9th and 10th grade core that's building students' academic skills, really focusing on that. And then 11th and 12th grade, really letting them blossom and choose some options in terms of what New Haven and the greater New Haven area has to offer. Internships that we're going to be building with community partnerships. We've got very fortunate being that New Haven is the center of higher education.
Mm-hmm.
Very fortunate, the colleges in this city. New Haven, Yale, Southern, Gateway, Hare College of Art.
Alberta's.
They all are willing to work with our students. A number of them provide free courses to public school students throughout New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And we're being a public school in New Haven, our students are able to take courses there. So if you're a student who knows that you want to be on that path, you can come to Common Ground and be on that path.
Okay.
But if you're a student who you're good with coasting, right? You're going to struggle at Common Ground because we're not going to let you coast. You're going to constantly be confronted.
So Eli, was your 4 years worth it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would be as far as like leadership if it wasn't for Common Ground, because they taught me those things. You know, that's what they capitalize on, is leadership. That's something that was always pushed into me. And like I thought it was I think that it was a pretty good experience as far as that. The 4 years, you know, I learned something new every year. As far as like, you know, freshman year, I became a little more social. Sophomore year is where I like became like a peer mediator. Junior year, I was a student ambassador. Senior year, I put it all together, and it was like, this is who I am as a person. Like freshman year, I would never thought that I'd be on the radio talking about Common Ground. I never thought. I gave a speech at graduation. I never thought that I would do that freshman year. It was crazy.
I like it. It was
so like
good.
to see how far I've gone since freshman year, it made me realize that Common Ground, it is worth it.
All
It's
right.
yeah, definitely worth it.
Now see, and 45 minutes goes just like that.
Boom.
It has been my pleasure to have you all here.
Mhm.
I love Common Ground. I think, Brian, you rep it very well. Eli, all success to you. I know
Thank
you'll stay in touch with these folks, right?
Oh yeah,
You'll stay in touch because we're invested in what you do. And you know what? You've got allies and people who want to help you along the way. So, you know.
He doesn't have a choice. He'll
He doesn't
stay
have
in
a
touch
choice.
with me.
Plus, Mr. K will come by your house and sit at your door.
It would not be the first time. It won't be the last time either. No.
Thank y'all so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
No
Thank you
Really
so
appreciate
much.
it.
And so if anybody wants any more information about Common Ground, what is the website?
commongroundct.org.
And if they want to call you directly?
203-389-0823, extension 1281.
Perfect. And
Thank
they are
you.
looking for students. So all the folks who are listening, share this. This will be a podcast later. So it'll be up, and so people you can take it and you can share it with people if you
Right.
want. And then it'll re-air at drive time at around 5:00.
Thank you so
And then
much.
it'll be a podcast. Thank you. I enjoyed this. All right, Harry, I know I gotta go. So I'm gonna play everybody out with here we go. I'll see y'all on Monday.
the morning.